So the NBA offseason has been pretty hectic so far. We've seen Lonzo Ball go to the Bulls, we've seen Carmelo Anthony and Russell Westbrook go to the Lakers, and as well as the Miami Heat getting Kyle Lowry and many more teams as well. And on top of the forefront of those teams that a lot of people have expectations for is the Golden State Warriors. Now, as a Warriors fan and going from other basketball fans, it has fairly been a mixed reaction for their offseason. Now, I've seen some fans say that this has been a very good offseason for the Warriors, as well as others say that this has been a very much disappointing season for the Warriors. But as a Warriors fan myself, I am pretty much on the fence. I remember particularly last season of even myself being caught up into the hype of the thought that we would possibly try to get Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now it has switched from that to Kawhi Leonard, Bradley Beal, or even Damien Lillard. Or the player that a lot of people are talking about now in Ben Simmons. So let's talk about what the Golden State Warriors should do. Should they keep the team that they have constructed around them to go ahead and make a run to a championship, or should they try to trade it for star talent? If you were to ask me in 2020 when we selected James Wiseman, I would have told you that they need to trade James Wiseman because I was pretty disappointed that we didn't get LaMelo Ball. And I know, we should have drafted James Wiseman anyway because it was better fit, and definitely LaMelo Ball would have troubles playing with Steph Curry and how he would fit with Klay Thompson coming back. And just like I felt that Wiseman was too raw and not really fitting our timeline, and you could say the same thing for LaMelo, but LaMelo I think would definitely have much more enticing trade offers. But after hearing the news that he's been working out with Hall of Fame all-time great power forward and Kevin Garnett, as well as the Warriors hiring Nikola Jokic's Serbian head coach, it makes me feel a lot more reassuring that we did make the right choice in drafting him. But again, we will never really know because it is fairly too soon. But now moving forward and drafting Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, now that we know what the 7 and 14 picks are, is it wise to really trade them along with Wiseman? Obviously, with Steph Curry coming back after signing his 4-year extension, as well as Klay Thompson is coming back fully healthy and Draymond as well, most Warrior fans and basketball fans I've seen say is keep the team as constructed with keeping Wiggins and the draft picks, and definitely this team could be in championship contention. But then on the other side, obviously I've heard a lot of people say get rid of the young players and get rid of Wiggins or other role players and definitely go out and get a star right now. As I said, I am pretty much on the fence and I lean much more on a middle ground. So I know from both sides are definitely not gonna like my takes on this or may think that they're ludicrous and doesn't make sense. I think it is wise to keep a young core as well as try to get a star right now. Now the question you're asking is, who is this star? How and will it work? How will this guy benefit us from now to the future? Now to cross out the names, I do not think that that star is Bradley Beal, I don't think that that star is Damian Lillard, and I really don't think that star is Kawhi Leonard. And I've definitely seen a lot of other people say this, and no, I don't think it's Pascal Siakam or another young caliber player like that either. I believe that star is Ben Simmons.
This dude.
What?
Ain't no way, boy. Boy, ain't no way, boy.
I know, some people are gonna question me as a Warriors fan and think that this is completely dumb and idiotic, but I definitely would ask you that you wait and listen to what I really have to say about this. I understand, we have a player like that already in Draymond Green, and Ben Simmons had one of the worst playoff performances we've seen in a long time. But why is it Ben Simmons and not any of these other stars on the list? Allow me to fully explain. Now, out of all these players, I feel like a lot of people really want Damian Lillard. A team with Dame, Steph, and Klay would definitely be fun to watch. This would definitely be the greatest shooting team that we've seen in our lifetime. Even though I know we can speculate and think that he means something else by saying these things, but he's made it fairly clear throughout his career he's not really a fan of super teams. And yes, I know, this is a trade after all, so he doesn't really have a lot of leverage in this situation. As great as the offense may seem in our heads, the defensive side of it would definitely take a hit. And remember, we're asking a guy that has been the face of a franchise for so long to now take a backseat to Steph Curry. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they can't figure it out come playoff time, but when it comes down to their future, it definitely will take a drastic hit if they do this trade. Next, we have on the board, which is Bradley Beal. Now, I could definitely see this kind of similar to the Damian Lillard situation because again, while Bradley Beal may be a prolific scorer, the defense will still still take a hit. And again, I think people are really missing the point that Klay Thompson is coming back from a torn ACL and an Achilles injury. And just as we're throwing him back in and on minutes restriction, you're throwing him up against guys like Paul George, Kawhi, you could even say Giannis Antetokounmpo, even LeBron James. That doesn't really sound like a good matchup for a guy who's coming off of 2 drastic injuries. To be fair though, Klay is not like a Kelly Oubre or a Dennis Smith Jr. where he relies on his athleticism to score. He's definitely more than ever just a catch and shooter, but still can possibly be a solid defender for this team. The main reason why I just don't see Dame and Bradley Beal is just because, again, Woj has stated multiple times from Bradley Beal that he's finding much more of a reason to stay. For Dame's career and how he is viewed to most people, I don't really see how it would look good if he ended up joining the Golden State Warriors. And from others like Woj had stated, Bradley Beal is looking for much more of a reason to stay more than just go somewhere. And it was also reported that if Bradley Beal were to get traded to the Warriors, he wouldn't think about staying long term. Instead, he would be wanting to go to the Boston Celtics. Now onto the main guy, which is Kawhi Leonard. Of course, just like all the other players that I named, I would love it if Kawhi ended up joining Golden State. But again, the problem is with Kawhi, as great as the talent that he is load management. And it was reported last year that some people in the organization or players were not fans of Paul George or Kawhi Leonard load managing throughout the season. Now, look at it from this perspective. Klay Thompson is coming back from an ACL and an Achilles injury only to see a guy who's considered to be a top 5 talent in the league to be sitting on the bench and coasting his way through the regular season. Now, to be fair, it may not be that big of a deal. But again, it does cause for some worry because most likely it will have to be a sign and trade to get a player like Kawhi Leonard. To be doing so, we would have to get rid of a lot of players like Poole, Wiggins, Moody, Kuminga, even possibly Wiseman, just for Kawhi Leonard, and I just really don't see the Warriors really doing this deal for a guy that can pretty much get rid of our entire future and if he can remain healthy. But when it comes down to his fit, it definitely can work. Our offense and defense will be very good for however long we can keep this up. The only real downside to this again is his health, because remember, he is coming off of a partially torn ACL injury himself, and if he goes to the Warriors, it definitely would sacrifice our future talent. And the Clippers most definitely won't let Kawhi just walk for nothing. They're gonna want Wiseman, Kuminga, Moody, Wiggins, all kinds of draft picks, future picks, pick swaps, possibly just this one guy. Remember, he is one of the best basketball players in the world, and insiders really do believe he will resign with the Clippers, so I just don't think he's the guy for the Golden State Warriors right now. But on to the guy I think is the perfect fit for this timeline as well as the future timeline. Let's talk about why Ben Simmons is the fit for Golden State. Obviously, with seeing how social media has been about the situation and how a lot of people have been slandering Ben Simmons, it makes sense why a lot of people have a lot of cause for concern. They're telling us, Berserk, to trust in a guy that can't shoot, as well as you're telling us to trust in a guy that may cause defensive problems and offensive problems with Draymond Green. And it could possibly lead to a lot of spacing issues. The rebuttal I have for this is I think a lot of people are overlooking how Draymond Green hasn't really been the same player since 2016. The way he has been playing, as well his production and quality, have pretty much taken a dip. He seems a little bit of a step slower, and just looking at his numbers and how they dropped off so much, you can make an argument that ever since Kevin Durant arrived, he hasn't really been the same player. And I totally get it. Different teammates, different ways of coaching can definitely have an impact on this as well. Now, a lot of people are definitely going to go at me for my GM skills, but I'm definitely going to have to trade Andrew Wiggins before I trade Draymond Green. And as I stated how split people are between the offseason moves that the Warriors have made, there is definitely a split between the player of Andrew Wiggins. On one side, you have some fans believing that he's going to be a liability and can't really improve his game all that further, and that the Warriors should just trade him right now for some better assets. And then there's the other side that believe Andrew Wiggins has stepped up and has improved his defense and his overall game, and believe that he can be an integral piece for the Warriors in the future. Letting him go right now can definitely be detrimental to the team for the long run. And as I said, I'm on the middle on this. You can pretty much pick either side if you want. I definitely understand why a lot of people don't want to give up on him so soon, as it looks like he is improving and getting better. From his all-around game to how he plays on defense, he really does look like a very good 3-and-D player, or you could say a decent or a good two-way wing type of player. And looking at how his numbers numbers from how he was in Minnesota drastically improved now that he's on the Warriors does tell you something about his own improvement. But even so, with all these great things, I still think the Warriors should trade Wiggins for Ben Simmons. If we're going by careers right now, Ben Simmons definitely has had a better career than Andrew Wiggins. But if we're going by who's the better player right now, I would still say Ben Simmons is the better player. Even though Wiggins is definitely more versatile, a better scorer, and definitely the better shooter. I'm going to keep this next criteria short, but this one definitely is about mentality, or pretty much their motor, who really wants to win more and how far are they willing to go to get it. At this moment, Ben Simmons has definitely been dealing with the brunt of this criticism, but Andrew Wiggins is no different to this either. Both playing with the likes of Jimmy Butler and how each situation definitely played out, pretty much each can be defined 50-50 in its own way. Even though I would say that the 76ers with Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, and JJ Redick definitely had a lot more success than the Timberwolves with Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. By going more off on this report, as it is stated, he has cut off connections with the 76ers and he is open to playing with teams like the Lakers, Clippers, and the Golden State Warriors. And as stated, he doesn't really want to play for the Raptors or the Trailblazers, so let's continue to discuss some trade scenarios and how he could fit with the Golden State Warriors. Let's say they keep their original trio of Steph, Klay, and Draymond, and if they're lucky, they get to keep Moses Moody, Kuminga, and Wiseman, which I definitely don't think would happen knowing how Daryl Morey really wants a lot of assets for Ben Simmons, but let's just stick with this scenario for now. You have a player that can definitely take the load off of Draymond Green, playing fast pace, on and off the ball, setting screens, playmaking. You put him on a team that can definitely give him everything he really wants, which is 1, players who can shoot. 2, players who can play in fast transition offense. 3, players who have potential to and can already play defense exceptionally well. 4, a coaching staff and players that can help improve his jump shot or style of play to better himself. And 5, becoming one of the key players to help this team get into championship contention. Side note to 5, possibly and a big maybe leading this team to another potential dynasty. Okay, yeah, maybe not a dynasty as of right now because again, the guy is fairly young as well as the players on the roster are still young, but should be definitely competitive for the foreseeable future. Even though at first he was gaining a lot more comparisons to LeBron James and is now gaining them to Draymond Green, I truly do think that he could be the true successor to Draymond Green and for the Golden State Warriors in the future. And as a side note for mentality reasons, he definitely does handle referees and technical fouls a lot more better than Draymond Green. Say if Draymond Green gets into technical foul trouble and gets too overly emotional, then you have another playmaker and great defender at your disposal with Ben Simmons. But if we really look at the roster spots that they have right now, let's really look at how Simmons would really fit in with these kind of players and what lineups they would really run. Main problem a lot of people have is him and Draymond Green. I've seen some people say that Simmons could play the 5 while Draymond is at the 4, then 3, maybe you have Kuminga still from the deal, then you have Klay and you have Steph, and or if they're playing a role player like Juan Toscano Anderson instead, I don't really know. But say if Moody is still here and they keep their young players as well as the core 3, then you really have a solid lineup for the players in the future. Because in all honesty, if we go to Fanspo or the ESPN trade machine, this trade could be over just by trading Andrew Wiggins for Ben Simmons. But since Daryl Morey and the Sixers have stated that they do want a Harden-esque like deal, they want a lot of assets in return, which makes this a lot more complicated. But something I could see happening. Think of it like this, the Warriors just traded Eric Pascal and waived Alen Smailagic, only leaves a player like Jordan Poole from his own draft class. So now say they have a real depth lineup and are running this team off the bench. You would have a lineup of Jordan Poole at the 1, Moses Moody at the 2, Jonathan Kuminga at the 3, Ben Simmons at the 4, and James Wiseman at the 5. I don't know about you, but this lineup would definitely look scary in the foreseeable future. And say this isn't the crew you really want to run him with. Say that you want to run him with the core 3 of Steph, Klay, and Dre. I believe you can put Simmons at the 3 or at the 5 spot. Again, he is 6'11", and he could definitely get Curry and Klay good wide open opportunities to get the shots that they need. Now the main problem that a lot of people have is Ben Simmons on the same court with Draymond Green. Since their games are fairly similar, it does raise an eyebrow for a cause of concern. This is where I think the development of Ben Simmons truly does come in. Again, I would definitely state this for Warrior fans and for other NBA fans, do not underestimate the Warriors development system. A guy like JaVale McGee who was clowned and laughed at on Shaqtin' a Fool, then proved with the Warriors he can be a good to even pretty great bench player on a playoff team. And we could definitely say the same thing about the original core 3. We could say that they were definitely inexperienced and young Young with Mark Jackson, to Steve Kerr unlocking more of their potential to become a successful winning culture and team. To one last comparison here, you can even say that Kevin Durant's defense definitely did improve when he was playing with the Golden State Warriors. Here's some quick stats for you to just see. And for another quick example side note, why do you think a lot of people are definitely split on Wiggins? Whether you like Wiggins or not, he definitely has shown some signs of improvement. So obviously, just to wrap this up and recap real quick, I'm not saying the Warriors should just go out and get a star or just trade away their future picks. And since we obviously don't know what the future holds, keeping Wiggins and even trading for Ben Simmons is 50-50 in its own right. But as I stated, I do think Simmons is the better player and has had the better career so far. Who knows, maybe the Warriors will trade him and maybe the Warriors will not. Time will tell on its own. And as I'm finishing up this video, I just got the notification that Kelly Oubre just went to the Hornets, so some may ask, does this change the way how you feel about the trade now? I still would probably say no, because like I said, it is pretty much up in the air at this point. Whether they want to keep Wiggins for his scoring and definitely do believe that he can step up defensively in the future, hey, by all means continue to go with him. But if they're not really sold on their picks and do not really believe in Andrew Wiggins long term, then I definitely would say just trade them off. So that pretty much wraps up this video. If you like videos like this, please be sure to like and share your feelings below, whether you agree or whether you disagree. And please follow me on Instagram, where I mainly post my basketball content, opinions, takes, and things of that nature, as well as I do upload other forms of entertainment as well. As always, if you enjoy videos like this, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. With that being said, as I always say, I'll see you around.